tell us about some common problems and pain points that families and students have throughout their education journey, and how can Bonas MacFarlane help?
Gosh, that's a very good question. There are choices to make, and the hardest choices, I think, in life are the choices between good things. And there's often no right or wrong choice. It's a question of finding out what's right for the particular child, and what's right for the particular child at that particular time in his or her life. And it can be a decision about when to start school in another country, what curriculum to follow, which university system to apply to. These are all big decisions, but at the end of the day, luck plays a big part. And if you're fortunate enough to be in with a group of children who become lifelong friends, or you're fortunate enough to have the teacher who you really connect with, then that's going to be more important than the choices you make. So it's not that controllable. But
so
yeah.
When there are so many uncertain factors around, how would Bonas MacFarlane help?
Well, I think that it comes down to who you are as an individual and how intrinsically motivated. You've got the extrinsic motivation from people telling you what to do and pushing you on, but that's a secondary consideration compared to the intrinsic motivation. In that sense, if you're really driven, I say to parents, we could drop your child out of an airplane in a parachute, any country in the world, and they'll get to the top. So school becomes less relevant, but it's what you achieve at school. Some of the very best schools still have low achieving students in them. But if you're mentored and assisted to have the right kind of motivation, the right kind of confidence, and you have that self-belief and you've got your own goals very clearly set out, then anything is possible. It's down to you more than it is to which school you go to.
So what if a child, if they haven't really discovered their intrinsic motivation and what they really want, what is the process like with Bonas MacFarlane in helping them?
Well, you have to get to know them and win their trust, and then start identifying goals that they understand and that they have they've bought into, that they've invested into, and these goals have to be shared with their parents, and everybody needs to be following the same path, and the child needs to be aware of that. But often you just have to wait. Everybody gets to where they want to get to at some stage, and it's some it's 25, 30. My oldest mentee was 40 by the time he got to where he wanted to get to. For others, they're really all ready to go when they're 10 or 11, and the trajectory just continues going up. So good things come to those who wait.
So do you suggest, what would be like the right time you suggest they think about what they want?
Well, there's no wrong time really. I mean, I think child development from the very early years is extremely important. Forming the right habits is vital, and that's where the danger of mobile phones come in. The danger of I'm not sure if it's an addiction, but it's certainly a very developed habit with social media and just the speed and the excess of input and the information overload and the sensory overload is something that affects children from a very young age. And there's a fear that if you put a child in front of YouTube too much when they're 3 or 4, that's going to affect the rest of their life. So there's no, you don't want to pressure children and tutor them when they're 3 or 4, but the habits you instill and the environment you create for them is extremely important from a very, very young age.
So what do you think is the uniqueness of the services and the processes that we at Bonas MacFarlane help them?
I think it's simply we've been doing this for 30 years. Many companies have emulated our techniques, our methods and our services. And we were the first to do all sorts of things, such as to integrate American placements into a broader British curriculum offering. I think we're quite unique in the sense of the countries we work with, the fact that one of our sister companies is the independent hosts the Independent Schools Show. It's a biggest independent school show in the world, and we've been doing that since 2007. We do shows and exhibitions in about a dozen countries. So we're genuinely international, and we integrate everything. So all of our tuition is integrated into our other services. That's it's not unique, but I'd say we're quite good at that.
So like, because in Thailand particularly, there's this thing called agency, like the agents, right? Where they
Yeah.
send the kids to their parents. And
Yeah.
just to clarify to some of the parents who might be looking for like an assistant in university placements, how would you
Well, an agent generally collects a fee from the school or the university, and there are some very good agents, and in an agency capacity, good things happen. But there are also some agents who aren't very good. We do similar elements of their work in terms of helping to place children into schools and students into universities. But we do all sorts of other things as well. And I often say to parents, look, this first placement, that's the easy bit, right? For some schools, other schools it's really not straightforward, but we're interested in seeing where you're going to end up. So plenty of children, we start working with them when they're 5 or 6, or even sometimes a little bit younger, getting them into the right nursery school, and then we help them all the way through until they leave university sometimes. We're helping the children of some of our former tutees now. So it's a long-term relationship, whereas an agent, often when they put them into the school, that's it. They'll pass the child on to a guardianship company that might be looking after hundreds or thousands of children. But we have a service which is big enough to be able to do everything, but it's still small enough and discreet enough for us to know everyone. I mean, what's extraordinary is that each shareholder and director in a company has a lot of business development work to do, if we can call it business, but every day we're all talking to families, every day. So we still take personal responsibility for individual families ourselves. And that's very much Angie and Sik's approach. You know, the dedication they show and the time and the effort, and it's not just saying, okay, here's a school list, we've got you registered there, okay, bye. That's the beginning for us. That's the beginning of the journey.
with so many encounter with so many different families, could you give us like an example of your most memorable experience with a family that you've helped?
Yes, family I got to know very well. I was staying with them in their holiday home in the shores of Lake Michigan, and I thought I had a quiet afternoon, and off they went on a boat, I think. And I didn't realize just how slowly elderly Americans from Texas drove, and I was holding their beloved dog in my arms while the grandparents drove out of the drive. And I let the dog go too quickly, and the dog got run over. So chef had to take the dog to the vet. I was all ready to get out there on the next plane, and the dog survived, but it was a very, very sticky moment, that one. That's probably the most memorable. But we've had, if you just pause that, and I'll give you another one. But I think that the point about staying with a family is that you eat meals with them, and you become a member of the family. I don't do it anymore. I think it's quite a young person's occupation, but that's how you develop conversation skills and thinking skills. It's what you do away from the desk, which is often more vital than what happens sitting working. That you might go to a museum to see a single picture, or read a play, then go and see it performed. And that constancy of being with the family all day really impacts considerably on their confidence and their communication ability, and it's what led me into it in the first place. It was just so enjoyable for me, because you meet new people and you're being very well looked after, and the progress is so rapid, one-to-one. There's something quite compelling about it that draws you back.
So if there's only one thing that you tell parents about kids' education, what would you advise them?
Relax. People get to where they get to, right? It's just that they get there at different speeds, and different parts of their brain are moving at different speeds. But just relax.
I like that. Relax. Be patient. And then
Be patient, and good things will come. And just follow your heart. Take a commonsensical approach about it, and Find a hobby, find one thing that your child likes doing that they're still going to be doing in 30 years' time. It could be playing the piano, it could be reading Shakespeare, it could be collecting stamps. It doesn't matter. Something that is a discipline with a community attached to it, and they can get involved in it. And so it might be that they're not working for a few years or a few months, or they're doing a job they don't really like, but they've still got their hobby, they've got their interest. And that can carry you through a very long way in life.
What if that interest to some parents that they're concerned? Oh, this is based on my experience. Some parents would be concerned that that particular interest might not be successful.
Well, that's a very good question. So a good example is computer games.
What would you advise?
Well, so now I think computer games are becoming an Olympic sport or something. And then there's strong evidence to show that they help your processing speed and concentration even. But that's a really difficult one. I think if you can have a hobby where you're actually talking to other people who participated in that hobby in real life time, you're not just having an online engagement with them, that can really help. If it's of physical benefit, that's great. If it's of cultural benefit, that's quite helpful, because the computer games people are playing now, I'm not sure if they're going to be playing them in 10, 20 years' time, but if you develop an interest in old master drawings, they'll probably still be looked at in 20, 40, 50, 500 years' time. But screen time is essential as part of life, but I'm a little bit worried about encouraging more screen time when the children already have so much. But it's the big question of the age, really. I think there's some that are more beneficial than others, but generally, as I was saying, that if there's a community attached to it, that's really, really helpful, because it can sometimes take a number of years to find the right career, or it may be that the career you have is quite solitary. You might be a writer or a copywriter, for example, or a freelance agent, and you don't have a whole office community, and people don't get offices so much anymore. But if you can then exchange that for the community you get from being in a tennis club, that's great. And there are certain sports that are transportable. So wherever you end up working in the world, if you can go and join a local tennis club, or you can go and join the five-a-side football club that every big company will have, or every neighborhood will have. I mean, being in a choir is a great thing. Or for me, it's playing the piano, and I think in terms of mental well-being and just the routine and discipline, you can have that through a hobby or a voluntary activity. Knowing how to volunteer and knowing how to be part of knowing how to fit into a new community, particularly when life is so itinerant and you might move from city to city, and you might need to have the confidence to leave home and go to another continent, go to a new city, and before you get there, you've already hooked up with the people who are members of the local squash club, for example, and that's very good for confidence. There's no doubt about that. So there's a lot of what we do and advise on which is going to help students with their academic study and their university study and their progression towards careers. But education is a much wider term than that, and it involves what we call the extracurricular dynamic, the pastoral dynamic. Being happy and confident for the right reasons, and knowing how to allay your anxieties, and knowing how to pace yourself correctly so you have goals that are achievable, but you're still, the magic dust of achievement happens when you're outside your comfort zone, and that's very important for children to remember. That they have to push to strive to succeed. Otherwise, they might regret it later on in life.
One last question, because in Thailand particularly, some parents think of education as the responsibility of the educators, the teachers in school.
Yes.
What do you think is the parents' role in its education?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because one of the first things I noticed about America when I first went there is how involved parents are in the local school, and they'll be there doing soccer clubs, and the dads will be there doing soccer clubs on Saturday morning. Their parents-teacher associations, the parents donate a lot of money to the schools in a completely legal way. And in the United Kingdom, after the Second World War, we had a pretty much socialist welfare state, and there is this completely ill-conceived view that schools should give your children all they need. That's not true. I mean, schools can't do that. It's technically impossible for a school to do that because you need to have one-on-one anyway, and they haven't got the resources. But that attitude is dying a bit of a death, I have to say. I mean, people appreciate schools and the work they do, but they know there has to be further supplementary support. And actually, the schools, we get along very well with schools, but the schools have not been as receptive as they could have been, because there's often an element of schools that will deal with it. Well, guys, you need help too, and so we like to bring this new supplementary sector, which also includes educational software providers, and there's a lot of entrepreneurship going on, to bring it together and close it in with schools. Well, the parents they've got to stop. And I don't want to be rude about parents. I'm a parent myself, but they've got to make sure they're doing the right thing for the right reasons, and those reasons can't be really to do with their own. I was going to say vanity, but brands don't really help. Focusing on getting my son into this school, getting my daughter into this school, they have to go to an Ivy League. We'll only look at an American college if it's an Ivy League. Wrong. What you need to have realistic expectations, while still expecting your children to get out of their comfort zones, because that's where the achievement happens. That's where the magic dust is. As a headmaster said to me the other day, a London headmaster who's an ex-American professional football player, and it's very interesting combining those American styles of motivation and achievement with the British approach. But parents need to relax, and they need to. I remember my headmaster telling me at Harrow a long time ago. He said, I was having an argument with him about teachers not doing something they should do. He said, no. He said, the great things that happen at this school are all driven by the boys. It's not the teachers, it's the really interesting things happen through the motivation, the intrinsic motivation of the children themselves. So for a child expecting everything to be done and arranged for him or her by his parents or by the school is, again, it's very ill-advised, and it's not unknown for children to become students and then they're still helped by their parents who know what's going on in their degree course and organise supplementary tuition, and then the first day of their jobs, parents are there as well. It's knowing when to let go as a parent is very difficult, but you have to let go, and you've got to let the child make his or her own mistakes. Learning how to fail and learning what happens when you make wrong choices is as important as often making the right choices.